Hey guys, so I'm sure you've heard this idea floating around lately. You look at the property prices in Singapore right now, and you see your HDB flat or condo sitting on a valuation of $700,000, maybe even $1 million. And then you look across the causeway. You see these massive, beautiful luxury condos in Johor Bahru with huge swimming pools for a fraction of the price. Naturally, the math in your head starts working. What if I sell my SG place, buy a cheap, beautiful condo in JB, pocket a few $100,000, and just relax for the rest of my life? Honestly, it sounds like the ultimate life hack, right? But before you go and put your Singapore home on the market, let's sit down and talk about the catch. Because there are a few strict rules and hidden costs that most people completely miss. First things first, you can't just buy any cheap apartment you see online. Malaysia has a strict rule to protect their own locals. In Johor, foreigners are only allowed to buy properties that cost 1 million ringgit or more. With the exchange rate right now, that means you have to spend a minimum of roughly 300,000 Singapore dollars just to buy a place. Now, you might be wondering, wait, then why do I keep seeing ads for RM 400,000 condos meant for Singaporeans? Well, those properties are almost always in a very specific area called Medini in Iskandar Puteri. Medini is a special zone where the government allows foreigners to buy cheaper developer units with no minimum price floor. But if you want to buy anywhere else in JB, you are legally forced into the 1 million ringgit luxury bracket. And the costs don't stop at the purchase price. Let's say you buy a nice condo for RM 1.2 million, roughly SGD 350,000. On top of that, you have to pay a bunch of extra fees. First, Johor charges foreigners a flat 8% stamp duty just for buying. On a 1.2 million ringgit home, that's 96,000 ringgit down the drain. Next, you need the Johor state government's official approval to buy, which costs another 10,000 ringgit to 20,000 ringgit and takes 3 to 6 months to get approved. Add in another 1% for legal fees to get the lawyers to do the paperwork, and all in, your extra buying costs hit 9% to 10% of the property price. Also, if you want to get a bank loan in Malaysia, banks there are quite strict with foreigners. They usually only loan you 60% to 70% of the house price. And interest rates are quite high, around 4% to 6%. So you actually need a big chunk of hard cash up front. Now, let's talk about what happens if you want to sell the place later. Malaysia has a tax called the Real Property Gains Tax. If you sell within the first 5 years, the government takes a massive 30% of your profit. If you wait until year 6 onwards, the tax drops to 10%. So financially, you have to hold it for at least 6 years. But let's look at the actual math. Imagine you buy an 1 million ringgit condo, hold it for 6 years, and sell it with a seemingly great 300,000 ringgit profit. After you pay the 10% tax, the property agent's commission, and your selling lawyer, you are left with less. Then you subtract the 100,000 ringgit you paid in extra fees when you first bought the place. Finally, don't forget the yearly upkeep. Condo maintenance and property taxes add up to about 8,000 ringgit a year, which burns another 50,000 ringgit over 6 years. At the very end of this 6-year journey, your actual cash profit is only 74,500 ringgit, which is just about 23,600 Singapore dollars. And if you took a bank loan, the monthly interest would completely wipe that out, meaning you could actually lose money. So JB property is definitely not a quick flip investment. The only real earning here is that you got to live there for 6 years without paying rent. So, if your main goal is just to live a more comfortable, affordable life in retirement, here is a much simpler option. Why not just rent? Right now, renting a really nice, fully furnished 2 or 3 bedroom condo in JB costs between 1,700 ringgit and 3,500 ringgit a month. In Singapore dollars, that is only 500 Singapore dollars to 800 Singapore dollars a month. Compare that to Singapore, where renting a tiny studio easily costs $2,000 or more. When you rent, you completely skip the 1 million ringgit rule, you don't pay the 8% stamp duty, and you don't have to deal with any tax headaches when you want to move. If you decide you don't like it, you just give 2 months notice and walk away. Selling your Singapore home is a huge permanent move. You are trading a solid, appreciating Singapore dollar asset for a house in Malaysia that is hard to sell quickly and tied to a fluctuating currency. My honest advice, go rent a place in JB for 1 year first. Try the lifestyle, experience the daily commute, and see if you actually like it. See if you actually like it before you touch a single cent of your Singapore property money. Just a quick disclaimer, property rules can change anytime, so definitely talk to a professional lawyer before you sign anything. What do you think? Would you rent first or do you still want to buy? Let me know in the comments below and I'll see you in the next video.